My daughter called me in the middle of the night, her voice breaking. "Dad, please, please, come get me." When I arrived at my in-law's estate, her mother-in-law stood blocking the door and said, "She's not leaving." I kicked that door open. When I found my daughter barely conscious in that locked room, what I saw in her arms made me realize I was too late to protect her. But I wasn't too late to make them pay. As a parent, what would you do if your child were locked up like that? I need to hear your opinion. Please comment below and let me know. My name is David Crawford. I'm 60 years old, and for the past 20 years, I've made a living exposing people who think their money makes them untouchable. Documentary filmmaking, that's what I call it. My daughter calls it my obsession. She's not entirely wrong. It started when my wife Linda died. Medical negligence. A hospital tried to bury what they'd done, offered us a settlement wrapped in a non-disclosure agreement. I refused. Instead, I made a documentary that cost 3 doctors their licenses and that hospital its accreditation. The film won awards, but more importantly, it saved lives. That's what I do now. I chase truth through a camera lens. I dig until I find what people are hiding. And at 2:30 in the morning, that's exactly what I was doing, reviewing footage for my latest investigation when my phone rang. My daughter's name on the screen. My chest tightened before I even answered. "Dad!" Her voice was barely there, shaking with terror. "Dad, please come get me. Please, I need a crash. Glass breaking." A man's voice, angry and slurred. "I have to go. Please, Dad. Please." The line went dead. I was moving before my brain caught up. Keys, phone, the small camera I always kept charged. 20 years of this work had taught me to function when everything inside me was screaming. The drive to the estate normally took 40 minutes. I made it in 25. My daughter had been married for 2 years. Her husband's family owned luxury recovery centers across New England. Everything looked legitimate on paper, but I'd learned the cleanest surfaces often hid the dirtiest secrets. I'd tried warning her. She'd accused me of sabotaging her happiness. I'd backed off. Told myself maybe I was wrong. Linda's voice echoed as I pushed the speedometer higher. Her last words, "Promise me you'll always protect her, no matter what." I wouldn't fail again. The estate sprawled across 20 acres in the Berkshires. I pulled up just after 3 in the morning, punched in the code my daughter had given me months ago. The gate swung open too smoothly. They were expecting me. Every light blazed. I took the steps 2 at a time, pounded on the locked door hard enough to bruise my fist. The door cracked open 6 inches. Her mother-in-law appeared through silver hair, perfect expression, cold. "David, it's after 3 in the morning. I know what time it is. My daughter called me. I want to see her. She's resting. She's had a difficult evening. Open the door." "I'm afraid I can't do that. She's not leaving." The way she said it made my blood run cold. "That's not your decision. I'm her father." "She's confused, under stress. The family is handling it." I stepped back and kicked the door just below the lock. The chain ripped from the frame. The door flew inward. She stumbled backward. "Where is she?" "This is breaking and entering. I'm calling the police." "Call them," I said. "Please." A sound from upstairs, a muffled cry. Female. Terrified. I ran for the staircase. She tried to block me. I moved around her. Her husband's voice joined the protest behind me, but I didn't look back. I took the stairs 2 at a time, following the sound of muffled crying from somewhere above. The crying came from the last door on the left. Locked. "Emma!" I pounded on it. "Emma, it's Dad. Dad," her voice small and broken. "Please." I stepped back and kicked. Solid wood decorative lock. The first kick rattled the frame. The second cracked it. The third sent the door flying inward. The room pretended to be a bedroom, but felt clinical. Expensive furniture, yes, but restraints on the bed frame. Windows locked from the outside. Emma sat on the floor in a thin nightgown, arms wrapped around herself, rocking. She looked up when I burst in, and my heart shattered. She'd lost at least 20 pounds. Hair limp. Dark circles like bruises under her eyes. But it was her arms that made my vision blur with rage. Precise circular marks ran up both forearms in neat rows. Some fresh and red, others scarred, over white. The pattern was deliberate, methodical. Someone had done this over weeks. "Oh, baby." I gathered her into my arms. She collapsed against me, sobbing. "I'm sorry. I should have listened." "Shh. I've got you. I'm getting you out of here. She won't let me leave. They'll have me committed. No one will believe me. Why wouldn't they believe you? Her words tumbled out fast. Derek's been giving me pills. Said they were vitamins, but made me foggy paranoid. He documented everything. Mood swings, irrational behavior. Videos, doctors' notes. They built a case that I'm mentally unstable. Gaslighting. Sophisticated and calculated. Where's Derek now? Downstairs, drinking with Jason. That's why I could call you. Footsteps on the stairs. Heavy. Multiple. I helped Emma up. She was unsteady. I kept my arm around her as Derek appeared in the doorway. Shirt untucked, eyes bloodshot. Jason behind him, nearly identical except for a chin scar. Both blocked the exit. David. Derek's voice slurred but amused. Breaking and entering. Assault on my mother. Not helping Emma's case. Get out of my way. Can't do that. Emma's sick. Needs professional help. We've made arrangements. Those marks on her arms, that's not help? That's abuse? Derek glanced at Emma's arms and shrugged. Self-inflicted. We tried to stop her. I have video proof. Stage footage. Manufactured evidence. Behind Derek, Charles appeared. 3 men blocking one exit. I was 60. My knees ached. I hadn't fought in decades. But I'd walked through fire before leaving my daughter here. I lifted Emma as she weighed almost nothing and walked straight at them. Derek reached for her. I twisted away. Jason grabbed my shoulder. I drove my elbow into his stomach. He doubled over, gasping. Past them. Hallway. Stairs. Victoria screaming about police. I didn't stop. Got Emma to my car, set her in the passenger seat. Started the engine. Punched it. In the rearview mirror, the Blackwood family stood in their doorway, backlit by mansion lights, watching. They didn't chase us. They thought they'd already won. My daughter barely stayed conscious during the drive. I kept one hand on the wheel, one on her shoulder, talking to keep her awake. Massachusetts General's emergency room was quiet at 5:30 in the morning. A nurse with kind eyes took her back. They wouldn't let me follow. I paced the waiting room for 2 hours. The doctor who emerged was young, tired professional. Mr. Crawford, your daughter is stable. We've documented the injuries. What concerns us more are the substances in her system. What substances? A benzodiazepine, an antipsychotic, and something we're still identifying. Troubling combination for someone who shouldn't be taking any of them. We're running full toxicology. We've also contacted police, as required in abuse cases. An hour later, Detective Lisa Morgan appeared. Sharp eyes, rumpled suit, direct manner. Mr. Crawford, I need your statement. First, I need to know something. Can I trust you? They claim the police chief is in their pocket. Something flickered in her expression. She closed the door. Chief Thompson and I don't get along. He plays politics. But I've been a cop for 12 years. I don't care how connected they are. Tell me what happened. I'll document it. I'll build a case. I told her everything. The call, the break-in, the marks, the drugs, the manufactured mental illness narrative. Morgan took detailed notes, no judgment. Enough for arrest warrants, she said. Assault, unlawful imprisonment. We'll get them. She paused, choosing her words carefully. Mr. Crawford, I've been coordinating quietly with federal agents. The facilities accept Medicare funding that makes fraud federal. If we can prove they moved people across state lines against their will, that's kidnapping with federal jurisdiction. But building that case takes time and solid evidence. What kind of evidence? The kind that shows a pattern, that proves intent, that catches them in the act. She met my eyes. Your daughter has been incredibly brave already. She might need to be brave again before this is over. I felt my jaw tighten. She's been through enough. I understand. But these people have been doing this for years. Your daughter might not be the only one we can save. I didn't answer. I'd just gotten my daughter back. The thought of putting her in danger again made me sick. The family was arrested that afternoon, released on bail 4 hours later. Their lawyers issued a statement painting my daughter as mentally ill, me as an unstable father. By evening, I was home exhausted but unable to sleep. James Sullivan called my business partner of 7 years. How is she? She'll survive. James, I need your help. The family. I need everything. Financial records, former employees, patient complaints, anything showing a pattern. I'm on it. I spent that night into the next morning researching. Their recovery estates generated $65 million annually, 5 locations licensed and accredited. but negative reviews had been scrubbed, former employees silenced. Then I found the death records. 47 people who'd been patients in the past 5 years had passed away. The number was high. The timing was wrong. So many, shortly after complaining or trying to leave early. James called at dawn. 7 former employees left on bad terms. 3 posted complaints before deleting them. 2 filed wrongful termination suits settled with NDAs. Can you reach them? Trying now. I started calling families of the deceased. Some hung up. Some cried. But 3 families talked. And what they told me made my blood run cold. The first call was to a mother in Vermont. Her voice cracked when I explained who I was. My son Tyler spent 6 weeks at the Blackwood facility in Stowe, she said. He'd been sober for 2 years before that, but his therapist recommended what they called a wellness tune-up, some kind of preventive maintenance program. She paused. I heard her breathing, trying to steady herself. He came out different, agitated, paranoid. They said it was a relapse, but Tyler swore he hadn't used anything. 3 weeks later, he was gone. They said he took too much of something. But my son was terrified of needles. He never would have injected anything. I took notes, my hand cramping around the pen. Did you report this? To the police, the medical examiner, the state licensing board. Everyone said the same thing. Accidental reaction to substances. Case closed. The second call was to a father in New Hampshire. His daughter had tried to leave the Lennox facility early after reporting abuse. A week later, she'd passed away during a hiking trip. Melissa was an experienced hiker, he said, voice flat with old grief. They said she fell, but when I finally saw her, she had bruises consistent with a struggle. The sheriff shut me down, said the medical examiner ruled it accidental. The third was a sister in Connecticut. Her brother had filed a complaint with the state licensing board about conditions at one of the Blackwood centers. He'd passed away 2 weeks later in his apartment. David left a note, she told me, but it didn't sound like him. The handwriting was his, but the words... David was angry. He wanted justice. He never talked about guilt or shame. Never. 3 families, 3 deaths, 3 investigations that went nowhere. I spent the rest of the day cross-referencing names, dates, circumstances. James sent me files from former employees, most too scared to talk, but their personnel records told stories. Sudden resignations, retracted complaints, NDAs. One name kept appearing in the margins. Notes from terminated employees, comments on deleted reviews, a thread I couldn't quite follow but couldn't ignore. Rebecca Miller, a quick search told me the basics. Licensed therapist, age 34. She'd worked at the Hartford Blackwood facility for 3 years before passing away 2 years ago. The obituary mentioned her dedication to her patients and her family's grief. Nothing about why someone so young had taken her own life. But then I found her sister's blog, Linda Miller, Newport, Rhode Island. She'd created it as a memorial, processing her grief publicly. Most posts were about memories, photographs the particular ache of losing a sibling. One post from 18 months ago stopped me cold. Rebecca told me she saw things at her last job that kept her from sleeping. She wanted to speak up, but they threatened her career. She was so scared. I think that fear took her from us more than anything else. I read it 3 times. Rebecca she'd called Rebecca, Rebecca. A nickname, maybe, but the timing aligned, the fear, the threats. I found Linda's contact form on the blog and sent a message. Kept it simple. Explained I was investigating the Blackwood facilities, that I thought Rebecca had seen something important, that I needed to understand what had happened to her. She called me within an hour. Mr. Crawford. Her voice was guarded. Why are you asking about my sister? Because I think she tried to expose something terrible, and I think it got her taken from you. I'm trying to stop them from hurting anyone else. Silence. Then, can you come to Newport tomorrow? I think I have something you need to see. What is it? Something Rebecca left behind, something I've been too afraid to show anyone until now. I booked the drive for first thing in the morning. Newport was 2 hours from Boston. I'd make it in 90 minutes. The next morning I drove to Newport with my hands tight on the wheel, Linda's words echoing in my head. What Linda showed me would change everything. Linda Miller's colonial home sat on a quiet street in Newport painted white, with black shutters and a garden that looked carefully tended. She answered the door before I could knock, like she'd been watching for me. Mr. Crawford. She was in her early 40s, wearing jeans and a faded UCLA sweatshirt. Her eyes held the particular sadness of someone who'd lost a sibling. I recognized it. I'd seen it in the mirror after Linda died. Thank you for seeing me. You're the first person who's asked about Rebecca in 2 years. Everyone else wanted me to move on. Stop making trouble. She led me to a small office lined with boxes. These are Rebecca's things. I couldn't bring myself to go through them. But after you called, I started looking. She pulled out a laptop, opened it, and turned the screen toward me. Rebecca kept journals. They're encrypted. It took me 3 hours to figure out the password. Her voice cracked. It was my birthday. She always remembered. The journal entries were dated detailed and horrifying. Rebecca had started working at the Hartford Blackwood facility 3 years before her death, excited about helping people recover. Within weeks, she'd noticed inconsistencies. Patients showing symptoms that didn't match their diagnoses. Medication records that didn't align with treatment plans. Patients who complained about abuse but whose complaints vanished. One entry from 18 months before she passed stopped my heart. I confronted Dr. Lehman about the discrepancies today. He told me to stop asking questions if I valued my career. When I pressed, he said I could end up like the patient in Building C who fell down the stairs. Building C is single story. There are no stairs. Another entry 1 month before the end. I can't sleep. I keep thinking about Linda. If something happens to me, will she understand why I couldn't just walk away? I have copies of everything now. Patient files, medication logs, internal memos. I'm going to take them to the state board next week. I'm terrified, but I can't let this continue. Did she make it to the state board? I asked quietly. Linda shook her head. She had an appointment scheduled. She passed away the night before. They said she took pills, but Rebecca was allergic to alcohol. It gave her migraines. She never drank. The medical examiner didn't care. Did she mention where she kept the copies? Her apartment. But I cleared it out after. There was nothing. I thought for a moment. Did Rebecca have anywhere else? A storage unit? An office? Linda's eyes widened. Her office at Boston University. She kept a space in the psychology building. She'd volunteer, sometimes mentoring students. I never checked it. 2 hours later, James and I stood in a cramped office at BU that Rebecca had shared with another adjunct. The current occupant was out. Linda's key still worked. We searched systematically. Drawers behind books, under furniture. Nothing. Then I noticed the ceiling tile above the desk was slightly crooked. I stood on the desk and pushed the tile up. Inside a cardboard box, 6 USB drives labeled and dated. Printed files, hundreds of pages. Patient intake forms with forged diagnoses. Medication schedules designed to induce compliance, not healing. Internal emails discussing difficult patients who needed special handling. And financial records. Payments to state inspectors. Local police, public officials. Dr. Palmer, $75,000 every quarter. Chief Thompson, $35,000 plus free treatment for his daughter. Judge Harrison, $150,000 annually disguised as consulting fees. Rebecca had documented everything. She'd known she might not survive, but she'd left this behind anyway, for Linda, for the truth. This is it, James whispered. This is everything we need. I drove home as the sun set the box secured in my trunk, like it was made of diamonds. I called Linda to tell her what we'd found. She cried. My phone buzzed as I pulled into my driveway. A photo. My front door taken from the street. Then a text, "We know where you live." I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I uploaded the files to 3 separate secure servers. Cloud storage with encryption. If something happened to me, the evidence would survive. More texts came as I worked. You're making this worse. Think about your daughter's future. I screenshot each one and forwarded them to Detective Morgan. She called at dawn. David, we need to talk. Federal building. 1 hour. I sat in a conference room with Morgan and 2 FBI agents. Special Agent Pierce spoke. Mr. Crawford, your evidence is strong, but for federal prosecution, we need to catch them committing a crime in real time, kidnapping across state lines. That gives us jurisdiction no local corruption can touch. The therapist who contacted James Melissa Turner, Morgan said, we think she's bait. They're watching. When someone meets her, they'll grab them. My stomach dropped. You want to use people as targets? We want to catch them in the act, Pierce said. Wire the participants. Track everything. When they move, we have federal kidnapping charges. Find another way. The door opened. My daughter walked in. "I followed you," she said. She looked at the agents. "I want to do this." "No," I stood. "Absolutely not." "Dad, listen. They're still out there, hurting people. If I can help stop them." "You've done enough. I know what I've been through. That's why I need to do this. I can't just be a victim." Her eyes met mine. "Let me help take them down." Pierce spoke carefully. "Surveillance teams at every exit. Tracking devices. The moment anything goes wrong, we move in. Things go wrong in seconds. I know the risks," my daughter said. "I'm choosing this. I saw my wife in her, that same determination, that refusal to back down from what was right. I can't lose you." "You won't, but you taught me to stand up for what's right. Let me do the same." I looked at Pierce. "If anything happens to her, it won't." "I'll hold you to that." James volunteered to go with her. Morgan assigned shadow teams. Coffee shop downtown. 7:30 p.m. As they prepared to leave that evening, every instinct screamed at me to stop them. My daughter hugged me at the door. "It's going to be fine, Dad. Call me when you get there." "I will." I watched them drive away. 7:30 p.m. 15 minutes to downtown. I'd spent 20 years walking into danger, but I'd never sent someone I loved. Never used my own daughter as bait, even with protection. The waiting was torture. At 7:45, my phone buzzed. A photo. My daughter and James in the coffee shop with Melissa. Taken from outside. Professional. Deliberate. Then another text. "Did you really think we wouldn't be watching, even expecting it?" My blood ran cold. This was the plan. But she was in their hands now. I grabbed my keys and called Morgan. They took the bait. "We're moving. Stay on script, David. Bring the fake evidence." I drove toward the coffee shop, hands shaking, knowing I'd chosen to let this happen. God, let this work. But knowing it was coming didn't make it easier. Seeing my daughter in that coffee shop photographed from outside like prey being watched. My gut twisted with the same sick fear I'd felt the night she first called. I grabbed my keys. My hands were shaking. "Stay calm," I told myself. "This is the plan. FBI knows. They're tracking her. But plans fail. I'd seen it happen. People die when plans fail." I called Morgan as I ran to my car. "They took the bait. We see it. Teams are mobilizing now. David, listen to me. They're going to call you. Make demands. You stay on script. Act desperate. Agree to everything. We need you to bring them the fake evidence." "Where's my daughter?" "Tracking shows they're moving her now, heading north toward the facility in Lenox. We're following at a distance. Do not spook them. We need to catch them there with her with evidence of kidnapping across state lines. If anything happens, it won't. Trust the plan." I wanted to scream that I didn't trust the plan, that I'd never trusted any plan that put my daughter in danger. But I'd agreed to this. She'd chosen this. God, what had I done? I drove toward downtown, not knowing what else to do. My phone rang. Unknown number. "Looking for your daughter." The voice was slurred, drunk, triumphant. "Where is she?" "Back where she belongs, with her family." I forced myself to sound panicked. It wasn't hard. "If you hurt her, what will you do? You've already broken into my home, assaulted my family. I think we're past threats. Stay on script. What do you want?" "Everything you've collected. Every document. Every recording. Every piece of evidence. Bring it all to the recovery estate in Lenox. Tonight. Alone. Or your daughter learns what real consequences feel like. Let me talk to her." A pause. Rustling. Then her voice. Small. Terrified. "Dad, don't come. Don't—" The line cut off. I sat in my car in an empty parking lot, listening to silence. My daughter's terrified voice echoing in my head. Even knowing this was planned, even knowing FBI was tracking her. Hearing that fear was real. I called Morgan back. I got the call. "He wants me in Lenox. Tonight." "Perfect. That's what we need. David, we're already positioning teams around the facility. The moment you give the signal, we move. Your daughter will be out in minutes." She sounded terrified. "I know, but she's brave, and she's not alone. We have eyes on her." I drove north, 90 minutes through dark Massachusetts highways toward the Berkshires. The laptop bag sat in my passenger seat, filled with fake files, good enough to pass inspection. The real evidence was already with federal prosecutors. Even if they took these copies, we had everything. But my daughter was in their hands. I thought about Linda during that drive. Her last words. Promise me you'll always protect her. I thought protection meant keeping her safe behind walls, locked doors, my watchful eye. But my daughter had taught me different tonight. Protection also meant trusting her to fight, to choose danger for the right reasons, to be brave even when I was terrified. She'd volunteered for this, not because I pushed her, because she refused to stay a victim. I was 60 years old, tired, scared. Every mile closer to that facility felt like driving toward my worst nightmare. But I wasn't helpless. The FBI was moving, the plan was working, and I had a role to play. At 10 p.m., the facility appeared in my headlights. Sprawling buildings, expensive architecture hiding something rotten. I pulled up to the gate. It opened automatically. They were expecting me. I stepped out, grabbed the laptop bag, walked through. My heart hammered, but my hands were steady. Inside the bag were copies of evidence. But what they didn't know was that I wasn't alone. FBI teams surrounded this place. My daughter was wired, every word being recorded. And in minutes, this would all be over. God, please let this work. The guard led me through pristine common areas, leather furniture, abstract art windows overlooking the Berkshires, all designed to look like a luxury resort. Then we reached an elevator, going down. The basement was different. Sterile white walls, fluorescent lighting, the smell of industrial cleaner masking something worse. The guard opened a heavy door. Inside, my daughter and James sat in chairs zip-tied at wrists and ankles, roughed up but alive. My daughter's eyes met mine, terrified, relieved, guilty. Melissa Turner sat separately, unrestrained, crying. I'm sorry. They have my daughter. Shut up. Victoria stood near the back wall, perfectly composed. Her son leaned against a table drink and hand bloodshot eyes. Charles and Jason flanked the door. David! Victoria's voice was ice. You brought what we requested. I held up the laptop bag. Everything. Set it on the table. Her son checked the files. Looks legitimate. Of course, Victoria said. Here's what happens. We delete this. Then you and Mr. Sullivan have an unfortunate accident. My daughter-in-law remains for treatment. Too traumatized for reliable testimony. You can't do this. We've done it dozens of times, her son slurred. What makes you special? Nothing, except one thing. I didn't come alone. Empty threat. Is it? The lights cut out. Emergency lighting kicked in, bathing everything in red. Then Victoria's own voice echoed from speakers. My daughter-in-law remains for treatment. Security feeds hacked, broadcasting live. What did you do? Victoria hissed. The FBI has been very interested in your operation. An explosion. Breaching charges. The building shook. FBI, nobody move. Tactical agents poured in, weapons drawn. Victoria froze. Her son dropped his glass. Charles and Jason were face down, being cuffed. Detective Morgan entered wearing FBI task force vest. Victoria, you're under arrest for kidnapping, assault, fraud, conspiracy. You have the right to remain silent. I crossed to my daughter as agents cut her free. She collapsed into my arms, sobbing. I'm sorry, Dad. Shh. You were so brave. I was terrified. But you did it anyway. That's what bravery is. Agent Pierce appeared beside us. Your daughter's courage made this possible, Mr. Crawford. Without her willingness to help, they might have walked. She saved a lot of people tonight. My daughter looked up. Really? Really? You're a hero. Over her shoulder, I watched agents lead Victoria away in handcuffs, her face still cold, but her eyes held something new. Fear. Letting my daughter walk into danger had been the hardest decision of my life. But she'd chosen it too, not as a victim, as a fighter. And tonight, we'd won. The trials took 18 months. The media coverage was relentless. My documentary premiered on a streaming platform during the proceedings. 10 million views in the first week. Rebecca's story, Emma's testimony, the evidence laid bare. I sat in that courtroom every single day and watched the Blackwoods realize money couldn't save them. The verdicts came down on a cold Tuesday in November. Victoria Blackwood, life imprisonment without possibility of parole. The judge listed her crimes methodically. Conspiracy, racketeering, direct responsibility for 12 deaths. Someone in the gallery wept with relief. Derek Blackwood. 30 years. Assault, kidnapping, conspiracy connection to 3 deaths. His face went pale. He'd be in his 60s before he saw freedom. Charles Blackwood. 20 years for conspiracy and systematic bribery. Jason Blackwood. 15 years for assault and aiding and abetting. Dr. Palmer never made it to trial. They found him in his Martha's Vineyard home 3 weeks before jury selection. The investigation ruled it self-inflicted. Chief Thompson took a plea deal. 8 years for feeding the Blackwoods information about investigations. Judge Harrison fought all the way through. 12 years for corruption and obstruction of justice. The Blackwood recovery estates were shut down, all 5 locations, assets seized. An $8 million victim compensation fund was established. 38 survivors came forward. Every single one received a settlement. The case triggered investigations nationwide. Regulations were tightened. Oversight increased. It didn't fix everything it never does, but it helped. Emma started a support group with Melissa Turner 6 months after the trials. I attended one meeting, sat in the back and watched my daughter help other survivors find their voices. That's when I knew Linda's promise had been kept. 6 months later, a letter arrived. Prison mail. Derek's name and the return address. You think you've won, but you've only made things worse. My family has connections you can't imagine. When I get out, we'll come for both of you. And this time, you won't see us coming. I photographed it, front and back. Sent copies to the FBI federal prosecutors and Derek's parole board. Then filed the original in my evidence cabinet. Let him threaten. Every word just added to his record. That evening, Emma called. Dad, someone reached out through the support group. Her sister was at a facility in Connecticut. She says things there are like what we went through. I pulled up my investigation board, added a new name, started researching. I'm 60 years old. My knees hurt. I get tired earlier than I used to. Sometimes I look in the mirror and see an old man, but I also see someone who knows how to fight, who's spent 20 years learning how to take down people who think they're untouchable, who made a promise to his wife and kept it. Emma is safe. Emma is strong. Emma is helping others survive what she survived, and there are more people out there who need help. More families being torn apart, more corruption hiding behind respectability. So I can't stop. I made Linda a promise 20 years ago, and I keep my promises. Looking back on this true story, I see a father who almost lost everything because I didn't trust my instincts soon enough. Don't be like me. Don't wait until your child calls you at 3 a.m, terrified and trapped, before you act on what you know in your gut is wrong. These grandpa stories I share aren't just entertainment. This true story happened because powerful people thought they could get away with hurting the vulnerable, and they did for years until someone stood up. The lessons I learned came at a terrible cost. First, trust is earned, not given freely. When someone shows you who they are through their actions, believe them. I saw the warning signs with Derek from day one, but I second-guessed myself. Don't make that mistake. Second evil hides behind respectability. The Blackwoods had money status and influence. They look legitimate, but God sees the truth even when the world doesn't. Pray for discernment. Ask God to open your eyes to what's hidden in plain sight. Third, never stop fighting for those you love. At 60 tired and hurting, I could have walked away, but God gave me the strength to keep going when I had nothing left. That's not just my strength, that's divine intervention when you refuse to give up on what's right. This true story is a warning and a lesson. These grandpa stories about justice aren't fiction. They're proof that one person armed with truth and determination can take down an empire built on lies. So here's my advice from these grandpa stories. Be that someone. When you see injustice, when you know something's wrong, when someone you love is in danger, act. Don't wait. Don't second guess. I'm still fighting, still taking calls from families who need help, still keeping the promise I made to Linda. Don't be like me and wait too long. Be better, be faster, be braver. And always, always trust what your heart tells you is true.